use this exponentially growing ballistic missile threat to make it virtually impossible to prevent them from obtaining a nuclear weapon. So as you probably saw, they had a tremendous number, most of which have now been used or destroyed, and very unsuccessfully used, because we have been able, for the most part, to shoot them all down. What incredible technology. The Patriots have been unbelievable, and other things. And the laser technology that we have now is incredible. It's coming out pretty soon. Where literally lasers will do the work of, at a lot less cost, do the work of what the Patriots are doing or what other things are doing. The situation was very quickly approaching.
You can start it now.
The regime's intention was to use this exponentially growing ballistic missile threat to make it virtually impossible to prevent them from obtaining a nuclear weapon. So as you probably saw, they had a tremendous number, most of which have now been used or destroyed, and very unsuccessfully used, because we have been able, for the most part, to shoot them all down. What incredible technology. The Patriots have been unbelievable, and other things. And the laser technology that we have now is incredible. It's coming out pretty soon. Where literally lasers will do the work of, at a lot less cost, do the work of what the Patriots are doing or what other things are doing. The situation was very quickly approaching the point of no return, and the United States found it intolerable, in my opinion, based on what Steve and Jared and Pete and others were telling me, Marco, so involved, that I thought that they were going to attack us. I thought they would, if we didn't do this at the time we did it, I think they had in mind to attack us. And if you notice, they did something which was very foolish, very stupid, I would say. They attacked their neighbors. And their neighbors were largely neutral, or at least weren't going to be involved, and they got attacked. And it had the reverse effect. The neighbors came onto our side and started attacking them, and actually quite successfully. If you look at Saudi Arabia, you look at UAE, Qatar, and others. But they were strong and they were smart, but they got attacked. Nobody, when I first heard it, I said, no, somebody made a mistake. There was no mistake. UAE had over 1,000 missiles shot at it, knocked them almost all down. On the very first day I came down the escalator in 2015, I said, quote, I will stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons. And all I'm doing is keeping my promise. Think of that. That was in 2015. I said it. It was a threat then, and a much bigger threat now, but no longer a threat, not for a long time anyway. We want to keep it that way. As we continue Operation Epic Fury, we're also focused on keeping energy and oil flowing to the world. And I will not allow a terrorist regime to hold the world hostage and attempt to stop the globe's oil supply. And if Iran does anything to do that, they'll get hit at a much, much harder level. I will take out those targets that were easy and that I mentioned just before. We'll take them out so quickly, they'll never be able to recover, ever. If they want to play that game, they better not play that game. In the long run, oil supplies will be dramatically more secure without the threat of Iranian ships, drones, missiles, nuclear menace, or anything. So the Strait of Hormuz is going to remain safe. We have a lot of Navy ships there. We have the best equipment in the world, inspecting for mines. Again, most of their ships are down at the bottom of the sea, but we will hit them so hard that it will not be possible for them or anybody else helping them to ever recover that section of the world. They do anything. In recent years, the regime and its terror proxies have launched attacks on hundreds of commercial vessels we're putting an end to all of this threat once and for all, and the result will be lower oil prices, oil and gas prices for American families. We've done that. We've done it. We brought it very low. This was just an excursion into something that had to be done. We're getting very close to finishing that too. In the meantime, during this brief disruption, the United States is offering political risk insurance to any tankers operating in the Gulf. So we're putting up risk insurance. We'll perhaps go alongside of them for protection. We don't think it'll be necessary if it is. And if they do anything, the price will be incalculable. It will be so great that they will have wished they never did it, because you have to keep the straits flowing. With all of that, it affects other countries much more than it does the United States. It doesn't really affect us. We have so much oil. We have tremendous oil and gas, much more than we need. We have Venezuela now as our new partner, great partner. They've worked out so wonderful. We're working with the administration, the president, and it's a massive source of oil, gas, everything. But we're in a very good position, but very unfair to other parts of the world, like China as an example. I mean, we're doing this for the other parts of the world, including countries like China. They get a lot of their oil through the straits. So we're doing this. We have a very good relationship with President Xi in China. I'm going there in a short period of time, and we're protecting the world from what these lunatics are trying to do, and very successfully, I might add. We're also waiving certain oil-related sanctions to reduce prices. So we have sanctions on some countries. We're going to take those sanctions off till this straightens out. Then who knows, maybe we won't have to put them on. There'll be so much peace. But when the time comes, the U.S. Navy and its partners will escort tankers through the strait if needed. I hope it's not going to be needed, but if it's needed, we'll escort them right through. And we have the greatest mine-sweeping ability. We have the greatest ships, and all of them, we know exactly where they're placed. We'll get them out of there very fast, but we hope we don't have any of that. And again, if they do that, if they play that game, we're going to hit them at a level that they have not seen before. So we're winning very decisively. We're way ahead of schedule. Our military is the greatest in the world, with the greatest equipment and the greatest people in the world. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Iran, it's a very powerful country. They were going to take over the Middle East. If we did not hit them, they were going to take over the Middle East. They had thousands and thousands since their last hit. They had thousands and thousands of missiles and everything else. Most are now destroyed. But they were going to take over the Middle East. Those weapons were aimed at Middle Eastern countries that had nothing to do with this. They were going to take over the Middle East, and they were going to try and destroy Israel. So we stopped it with good timing, and we're very proud to be involved in this, and it's going to be ended soon. And if it starts up again, they'll be hit even harder. Thank you very much for being here. Go ahead, any questions?
Thank you so much.
Go ahead.
Do you approve of Iran's new supreme leader? And secondly, can you tell us more about your call with Russian President Vladimir Putin today?
Yes.
What did you discuss?
Yes, I had a very good call with President Putin. We had a lot of people on the line from our side, from his side. We were talking about Ukraine, which is just a never-ending fight. And look, there's tremendous hatred between President Putin and President Zelensky. They can't seem to get it together. But I think it was a positive call on that subject. And we obviously talked then about the Middle East. And he wants to be helpful. I said, you can be more helpful by getting the Ukraine-Russia war over with. That would be more helpful. But we had a very good talk, and he wants to be very constructive. Yeah, please. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. On Iran, you called it an excursion. You said it would be over soon. Are you thinking this week it will be over?
No,
You're talking
but soon.
about days?
I think so.
Okay, and with respect
Very soon. Look, everything they have is gone, including their leadership. In fact, there are two levels of leadership, and even actually, as it turns out, more than that. But two levels of leadership are gone. Most people have never even heard about the leaders that they're talking about. So It's obviously been very, very powerful, very effective.
Back to Cuba, you said that Cuba wants to make a deal.
Yes.
What would the United States get in return for that, and why should Americans trust Marco Rubio to negotiate it?
Well, Marco Rubio is doing a great job. I think he's going to go down as the greatest Secretary of State in history. Look at what we've done as a presidency. Look at what we've done as an administration. They trust Marco, and so do the American people trust. He's been successful no matter where he's been. He also speaks the language, which is always nice and always helpful. But he's dealing, and it may be a friendly takeover. It may not be a friendly takeover. It wouldn't matter.
He is superb, Jim.
They're down to
Marco Rubio.
As they say, fumes. They have no energy. They have no money. They're in deep trouble on a humanitarian basis. And we don't want to see that, but they were very, very bad to a lot of people, as you know, and a lot of people living on the Cuban-American vote, which I got at record levels. Very important. Those people are very important to me. I know what they went through. They went through hell. Some of them have gone on to be some of the most successful people in the country. Cuban-American business people, some of them are like the most successful in the country. And a lot of them are friends of mine because I've been fighting this battle with them for a long time. The Castro regime was brutal, but they lived off Venezuela. Now they don't live off Venezuela. Sends them no energy, no fuel, no oil, no money, no nothing. They lived without Venezuela. They couldn't have made it. And we cut them off from everything else. So, they're going to make either a deal or we'll do it just as easy anyway. Yeah. Please, go ahead.
There's footage that showed that an American missile strike and a Tomahawk missile likely destroyed that Iranian girls' school. So will the U.S. accept any responsibility?
Well, I
for
haven't
that
seen
strike?
it. And I will say that the Tomahawk, which is one of the most powerful weapons around, is used by, is sold and used by other countries, you know that. And whether it's Iran, who also has some Tomahawks, I wish they had more, but whether it's Iran or somebody else, the fact that a Tomahawk is very generic, it's sold to other countries, but that's being investigated right now. Yeah, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, you've said the war is, quote, very complete, but your defense secretary says this is just the beginning. So which is it, and how long should Americans be
Well, I
prepared
think
for
you could
this war
say
to
it
last
both.
for?
It's the beginning of building a new country, but they have no Navy, they have no Air Force, they have no anti-aircraft equipment. It's all been blown up. They have no radar, they have no telecommunications, and they have no leadership. It's all gone. So, you could look at that statement. We could call it a tremendous success right now as we leave here. I could call it, or we could go further, and we're going to go further. But the big risk on that war has been over for 3 days. We wiped them out in the first 2 days. When you think about it, it's incredible. We wiped out a big Navy, very powerful Navy. These were ships, these were serious ships. These were ships that you buy when you want to win battles. They're all on the bottom floor. The sailors are all running off their ships. They refuse to get on the ships. The Air Force is gone. Everything's gone. The missiles are down to a trickle. The drones are down to probably 25%, and they'll soon be down to nothing. We'll have where they manufactured the drones are under fire as we speak. They're being hit. So the rest is going to be determination as to my attitude, along with the people in the Trump administration, what we want to do. Thank you. Yeah, please.
Can I ask you, you mentioned you were going to waive certain additional oil waivers or sanctions. Can you talk a little bit more about that and address in particular?
Well, we're looking to keep the oil prices down. We went artificially up because of this excursion into a very positive thing. I mean, this was an excursion that a lot of people wouldn't have done. I knew oil prices would go up if I did this, and they've gone up probably less than I thought they'd go up. But I don't think anybody thought we were going to be this quickly successful. This was a military success, the likes of which people haven't seen. We have the best military. We have the best equipment. We have, I believe, the best generals. We have the best. And this went very quickly. We talked about that with President Putin. He was very impressed with what he saw because nobody's ever seen anything quite like it. You know, Iran was a very powerful military country with all of the missiles. Now, you had the double attack. You had the original attack with us in Israel, and that knocked them for a loop. Then you had the B-2 bombers, which took out their nuclear capability, and they would have had a nuclear weapon within 2 weeks to 4 weeks. And they would have used it long before this press conference. And we might have had a much different press conference if we had a press conference at all. But it's been amazing. The military success that we've had is truly unprecedented.
You've told your congressional colleagues that you will not sign any piece of legislation until the Save America Act is passed. Does that include the confirmation of Senator Mullen as your next DHS secretary? Does that mean a DHS funding bill? And Senator Thune said today, it's not a matter of whether or not your Republican colleagues agree with the policy, it's about changing the process. In other words, getting rid of the filibuster to get there.
So in order to get it, you're going to need Democrat votes. And what we're saying is the Save America, not the SAVE Act, which nobody knew what it was, the Save America Act. The Save America Act. And that's voter ID. We want voter ID. We want to be able to see a picture of the voter. We want to be able to see that the voter is legitimate. We want, very importantly, confirmation that this voter is a citizen of the United States of America, and we want no mail-in ballot scams. So we have exceptions for the military, for sick, for disabled, and for people that are away, business trips or whatever. Even vacations will be very liberal in that. We've added 2 things to it: no men in women's sports and no transgender mutilization of our children. We don't want it's mutilization of our children, and we don't want that. So we added those 2 things. That's the 5 points. We have 5 very good points. It polls at 86% with Democrats. Think of that. The overall vote is 86%. With Republicans, it's 98%. And the only one opposed to it is a Democrat leadership because they cheat. They want to cheat. So we added those 2 points. We're going for the gold, and we're going to have to fight like hell. Now, certain things will happen. Certain things will take place. I'm here to do a great job for the country. But we don't have a country if we're going to have elections that are so corrupt and so dishonest like we've witnessed over the last period of time. You know, as an example, virtually nobody has a system of mail-in ballots like we have. No other country in the world. France went away from it. They all went, you know why? Because it's corrupt. And Jimmy Carter, when he had a commission, frankly, I think it's probably the best thing Jimmy Carter did. He said, you can't have mail-in voting because it's inherently dishonest. And it's turned out to be totally dishonest, and we're going to fight for it. Yeah.
Has Iran activated any sleeper cells inside the U.S.? There's reports that they have pressed that trigger button to activate those cells, at least abroad.
Well, they've been trying for a long time. We've been very much on top of it. One of the things we have to do is get the Democrats to stop the Democrat shutdown, because, as you know, the apparatus that looks into that, Schumer and the Democrats have shut it down, which tells you they probably hate our country a lot. But the Democrats have to open that up. But we've got very, very good intelligence into that. We know a lot of different things that have happened that have been very bad. A lot of them came in during the Biden open border period, but we have them under, we've got them, we're watching every single one of them. Yeah, we know a lot about them. The biggest problem we have is the Democrat shutdown. We know a lot about them, but the shutdown doesn't allow us to do what we have to do.
Leader, do you have to take him out? Does he have a target on his back?
You mean the new Supreme Leader? You mean the son?
How can there be an Iran?
Well, I don't want to say that, but you know, I was disappointed because we think it's going to lead to just more of the same problem for the country. So I was disappointed to see their choice.
You've said you have someone in mind to be the new Iranian leadership, if not the Ayatollah's son. What are you looking for in that person? Are you looking at someone internal, given that you just said that their leadership has been
I like the
decimated and
idea
wiped
of internal and eternal, come to think of it. But I like the idea of internal because it works well. I mean, I think we've proven that so far in Venezuela. We have a woman, Delcy, who has been, president of the country, very respected, she's doing a great job. And it's, no disruption. We had, as you remember, Iraq, where everybody got fired. The military got fired, the police got fired, the politicians got fired. There was nobody. And you know what they turned into? ISIS. And we don't want that. We don't want that. So I would like to see people that are inside go. Now they talk about the son of the Shah. They talk about other people, but hasn't been there in many, many years. We have a formula that's been very good so far, and I think it'll continue to be good. The relationship is extraordinary with Venezuela, smart country. We've taken out 100 million barrels of oil. It's right now in Houston being taken care of and made so beautiful. And you have to see this at work. They have, it's brought to the refineries. It's being refined in Houston, which is made exactly for that product. And so far, but it's 100 million barrels of oil, and now they have another 100 million barrels coming. And it's like a partnership. We're getting along so well with them. It's great for Venezuela, and it's great for the United States. Yeah, please go ahead.
Mr. President, you just suggested that Iran somehow got its hands on a tomahawk and bombed its own elementary school on the first day of the war. But you're the only person in your government saying this. Even your defense secretary wouldn't say that when he was asked, standing over your shoulder on your plane on Saturday. Why are you the only person saying this?
Because I just don't know enough about it. I think it's something that I was told is under investigation. But tomahawks are used by others, as you know. Numerous other nations have tomahawks. They buy them from us. But I will certainly, whatever the report shows, I'm willing to live with that report. Yeah, please.
You said earlier that we've already won in many ways, but we haven't won enough. What do you consider enough? What's your baseline?
Where they're not going to be starting the following day to develop a nuclear weapon. Where they'll look at that man and some other people from the administration and say, all right, we're not going to do it. They were not willing to say that. And when Steve called up and he said that to me, I said, well, here we go. Let's do it the hard way. But the hard way, I think, is probably the easy way. When basically I can see that they will no longer have any capacity whatsoever for a very long period of time of developing weaponry that could be used against the United States, Israel, or any of our allies. We have great allies in the Middle East, great countries that are allies. And they were staying out of it until they got hit. Someday they'll have to do a story. Why did he do that? Why did they do that? But they were going to hit them. If I didn't hit them first, they were going to hit our allies first. I believe, upon information and belief, but I believe that he was going to, they were going to take over the Middle East. They were looking to take over the Middle East. Now, had Operation Midnight Hammer not taken place, that was definite. Because they would have had a nuclear weapon within a matter of weeks. But that took place, that was a setback. But look at the number of missiles they were able to buy and make over the last 6 months. And those missiles were aimed at various countries. And when you look at over 1,000 missiles shot at like UAE, they were looking to take over the Middle East. We got there first. We're lucky. I'll tell you what, the Middle East and those countries, very rich countries, are very lucky that I was president instead of somebody else.
Points of disagreement between yourself and your vice president when it comes to U.S. action in Iran?
I don't think so, no. No, we get along very well on this. He was, I would say, philosophically a little bit different than me. I think he was maybe less enthusiastic about going, but he was quite enthusiastic. But I felt it was something we had to do. I didn't feel we had a choice. if we didn't do it, they would have done it to us. I felt, based on the negotiations that were being had by Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner and Marco and Pete and everybody was involved, I felt that they were looking to tap us along before they hit, and I thought they were going to hit. And if they hit us first, that would have been a very bad thing. In the back, please, in the back. About the straight, you mean? Yeah, well, I want to keep it open. I want to keep it good. You know, it doesn't pertain to us so much as it does to China. We're really helping China here and other countries because they get a lot of their energy from the Straits. But, hey, look, we have a good relationship with China. It's my honor to do it. Yeah.
Leader, you have called him an unacceptable choice. So does he have a target on his back, and how can you say
I don't want to say whether or not he does because that would be inappropriate. But hey, look, I had a target on my back because, as you people wrote pretty well, they caught the assassin that was after me. So we just got them first, but they caught the assassin. They have him now in custody that was after me. So, you know, but people don't like to mention that, but they did catch him. And I'd like to congratulate our military, Secret Service, FBI, all of the people that worked on that, but they did. Yeah, please. Go ahead. No, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. You promised the Iranian people you would help them, but it sounds like you're willing to end this fight after your military objectives have wrapped up. Isn't that a betrayal of
Will I help them? I'd like to, if they can behave. But they've been very menacing. You know, they're great people. They have an amazing population. It's amazing, smart, brilliant, energetic. They have a great, I'd love to help them, but they have to be in a system that allows them to be helped. And right now they're in a system that only allows failure. And I don't want that. And I want a system that's not going to be attacking us. We want a system that can lead to many years of peace.
Hey, John.
And if we can't have that, we might as well get it over with right now. Yeah, please.
Yeah.
As of today, there have been 8 U.S. military fatalities associated with the war in Iran.
I'm sorry,
How many
listening.
American deaths are you willing to have in this war?
Well, as I said before, when you have conflicts like this, you always have death. And I was at Dover yesterday. I met the parents, and they were unbelievable people. They were unbelievable people, but they all had one thing in common. They said to me one thing, every single one: finish the job, sir. Please finish the job. And I'll leave you at that. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
The President of the United States in Florida talking to reporters about the situation in Iran. He called it an excursion, the Iran excursion that is ending very soon. He said he's disappointed in the Iranian choice, the Ayatollah's son, Mujtaba Khamenei. He said that the beginning of building a new country can start now. We would call it a tremendous success and have it. The biggest risk has been over for 3 days now. He said the missiles are down to a trickle, the drones are down to 25%. The rest is a decision about how I look at it, how my military people look at it, and where we go from here, but it is ending very soon. Let's bring in Fox News Chief Political Analyst Britt Hume. We'll start there with Britt. Britt, good evening. Your thoughts on this news conference where the president is clearly optimistic about where the military operation is and maybe sees a light at the end of the tunnel here.
Yeah, I think that's right, Brett, and I think his confidence is based obviously on what he's hearing from the commanders over there, that the mission is ahead of schedule, that they did far more in the first few days to wipe out Iran's retaliatory capacity than they expected they might be able to, and that there's not a lot left over there to menace us. That raises, and then of course you get to the question of oil prices, which are a tangible and widely felt consequence of this conflict that American people feel very keenly every day. And obviously they're eager to get that under control if they can. And I think that the fact here is that it's not the Iranian military that's keeping the Straits of Hormuz closed. It's the worry that the ship insurers have about crossing the Straits of Hormuz and what might happen there in the midst of conflict. Once this subsides a bit, The U.S. military presumably would be able to offer escorts if needed. He doesn't seem to think, the president didn't seem to think they might even be needed. But we're not in a situation where there's a massive oil shock worldwide. What we have, I think he's right to assess this as a short-term fact of life owing to the uncertainty created by the conflict. But it is something he has to deal with because this is politically, oil prices are politically exceedingly sensitive.
Well, it's untenable for the long term. He said it's going to be a short-term situation. Let's play a soundbite. This is the president on the threat and surrounding oil prices.
We're putting an end to all of this threat once and for all, and the result will be lower oil prices, oil and gas prices for American families. We've done that. We've done it. We brought it very low. This was just an excursion into something that had to be done.
Saying it had to be done. We've watched oil prices, obviously, Britt, skyrocket. But all along, the president has said that that is going to be short term. He's suggesting, and there you see the average gas price that we've seen go up just in recent days. He's suggesting that this is all going to wrap up sooner rather than later.
He certainly suggested that, Brad, and he said, I believe at one point he said we could stop it now if we wanted to, but there's apparently a bit more to do over there. It's worth remembering, by the way, when we're concerned about oil prices, that the one country on earth that can least afford to have the Strait of Hormuz closed is Iran itself. 90% of Iran's oil exports, which are absolutely vital to that economy, pass through those straits. They have a pipeline that goes out to the east, but it ships only a small percentage, and so they need the Strait of Hormuz to be open themselves, and so does most of the rest of the world. I think it's reasonable to suggest that before too long that's going to happen.
All right, Britt, stand by if you would. Let's bring in our panel here early. Fox News political analyst Reince Priebus, Fox News senior political analyst Juan Williams, and Meredith McGraw, White House reporter for the Wall Street Journal. Meredith, let me start with you. What did you hear from that? What struck you?
Well, I think we heard from the president that, again, that he feels like the mission here has been successful so far. They're ahead of schedule. But he did hear some pressing questions from the reporters there about his views on the potential new successor there in Iran, who he said he's disappointed by that pick. He talked about his phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin and claimed that Putin is going to be helpful. He mentioned also potential sanctions relief to ease up on oil prices. But I think there are still a lot of outstanding questions here about if Trump is disappointed in this new pick, well, what does that mean? Is this person going to be targeted? What is the president and the administration's involvement going to be moving forward? Iran, and what does this mean for the Iranian people?
Yeah, that perked my ears, the phone call with Vladimir Putin where he said he wants to be constructive. This comes after, a number of reports and confirmed by administration officials that Russia at one point was providing Iran targeting information of U.S. troops in the region. Reince, what else struck you?
Well, what struck me was the president putting out a very optimistic view. He's optimistic generally, but he is someone who understands media and what the American people need to hear. And I think him talking about the fact that this could be complete now if we want it to be, he's balancing one of the most treacherous things any president could try to balance. He has a once-in-a-generation opportunity in the Middle East where Arab countries are aligned. He has an opportunity to change the entire course of history in the Middle East. But he's also balancing the uncertainty of war. He's balancing an anxious public. He's balancing gas prices. He's balancing the midterm. And he has to do all of that, and I think really portray this optimism that I think he knows that the American people want to hear, and that's why he's delivering that.
Yeah, and listen, we come from a time of war where we saw George W. Bush say, mission accomplished on a boat, and that didn't happen. So there is skepticism and some thought about rose-colored glasses from at least some segment, not just Democrats, but some Republicans, whether that's true or not. But clearly the president believes they're close to ending this.
Well, but that's why I think if you, in the beginning of the press conference, he focused so much attention, and you see the Department of War doing it, Marco Rubio doing it, they are focusing on neutralizing Iran. And the president is saying to his generals, Why is any missile site still functioning? Why are drones being launched from here? Why aren't we nailing every single one of these pieces of military equipment? Because once that's done, well, then the president's got time to deal with the regime issue, and that's why all the focus is on that. And then he's got time to deal with that problem.
You know, Juan, he also said, well, first of all, he was asked by Aisha Hasni about the sleeper cells and was there a message. He said they're tracking it all, but then he went political and said Democrats are shutting down DHS and causing a problem in our ability to deal with that. He also said that, you know, next steps here, he put a template, much like Venezuela, which we talked about before, how you deal with somebody on the inside, like Delcy Rodriguez, to try to get the country to straighten out.
Right, and I think that's been his thought all along, that in fact, he could find somebody in there. Now, what we've heard in terms of the reports on the bombing damage was that not only was the Supreme Leader Khomeini killed, but that in fact some of the people that he had thought might be good replacements were killed.
Different tiers, yeah.
Yes, and you know, and currently we have Khomeini's son, whose family was killed.
And there's some reporting that he was injured and had to have his leg amputated. We're trying to get that confirmed. But
okay, well,
anyway.
but it doesn't signal that this guy is going to be any more open or less antagonistic towards us as Americans. I thought, you know, to me, I'm accustomed to President Trump being rather, you know, exuberant and convincing in his language, and I thought he was fairly muted in terms of his assessment of the state of what's going on. And I think that earlier today, he said in an interview that he felt like, you know, we have got this largely done. And what he saw was the stock market then recovered. The stock market went up. And I think that's what he was trying to do in this press conference today, was to signal to the investors as well as the people who are going to the gas pump, look, we got this under, we got this under control. It's going to go away shortly. But the fact that he was so, you know, I think reluctant to just kind of, you know, say mission accomplished, as you said, Brett.
Well,
I think, right. No,
there's
I'm
history
not blaming it. What? Right. And I think that's why you say it's not just Democrats, but it's lots of people, Republicans, everybody says, exactly, what did we accomplish here? You didn't get the regime change. Where is the enriched uranium that you were talking about? We don't know where that is at the moment. And gas prices have gone up. So I think there's a lot of concern. I think that the fact that he spoke in such sober terms reflects that.
Brett,
Oh,
the
he's
administration would
negative.
say what was accomplished was taking out the ability of Iran to
negative
have
my
a
whole
ballistic missile
career.
threat to its neighbors, diminishing or taking out the drone capability and factories, and setting back even further because they were starting back up a nuclear program that they took out in Midnight Hammer. He said at one point, this will be over when Iran has no capacity of weaponry against U.S., Israel, or our allies for a very long time. And you have allies like UAE that have taken the brunt of these hits, double what Israel has taken.
Yeah, and I think that Iran's calculus, to the extent it can be defined, is that, boy, we start hitting those people, they're going to tell the U.S. to knock it off. That hasn't happened. It hasn't come near to happening. In fact, it turned out to be strategic idiocy on the part of Iran to further alienate its neighbors who don't like Iran but try to get along with it. And they were forced to choose, and it appears for now at least, and probably going forward, that they have chosen to join the United States and hope the United States can prevail and not to do anything to hinder that. So I think, you know, the chances of what can be called a real victory here have risen, not diminished. And that I'm a little unclear by Juan. I love you, Juan, but I thought the president, if you listen to his words, was pretty darn exuberant. So that's where I come out on this anyway.
Well, Juan, go ahead.
No, I think I'm used to the president being exuberant. I didn't think he was exuberant, Brett. I thought that he was measured, and intentionally so, because I think he wants to control how the narrative goes from here, and in terms of saying, here are the measures of the success. So far, he's saying it's a military success. But obviously, the Iranian strategy is to prolong this thing and put the United States, and especially countries that depend on the oil coming through, in a treacherous state.
One would think, you know, with 8 U.S. service members dead, that the tone would be fairly measured, Meredith. From here, there will be these questions. How many days? What's it look like? Those are things that they're not going to put a timeline on, but he's clearly signaling that there's a light at the end of this tunnel.
He is signaling, at least to the public, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and I think there are very serious political issues at play, you know? We're talking about rising gas prices, the terrible deaths of our own U.S. servicemen, and real questions from the American people about how long this could go on, and those are all levels of tolerance that the president's going to have to weigh as he makes these decisions moving forward.
There will be pressure from the other side, from the Israelis, to say don't stop. There will be pressure from the people who have waited for Iran to be this weak to say don't stop. We need to help the people on the ground get this regime out. And that's the balance, right?
Well, one of the things that I learned about working with President Trump, and still to this day, is that when he puts out there that I think that this situation is coming to a close or it could be ending soon, that's actually what Donald Trump wants. He doesn't hide his own feelings. His feelings to the public are very, very similar and almost exact to the feelings that he shares with his staff in the Oval Office.
I want to bring in Jen Griffin, our national security correspondent. One of the questions, Jen, in that news conference was about the strike on the girls' school that's next to a base in Iran, and it was a Tomahawk missile. The president saying Tomahawks are used by other countries, but an investigation is ongoing. What do we know about where that stands?
Well, that was a bit surprising to me because basically the U.S. has Tomahawks. Tomahawks have to be fired from either submarines or from warships. The Brits and the Australians have Tomahawks, but they're not part of this conflict. And then you also have the Japanese who are in a testing phase. So it seems highly unlikely that it would be anyone's Tomahawk other than a U.S. Tomahawk that hit that school. And I think the president knows that. He just knows that this is certainly a mistake, a big mistake, and it's being investigated, but he's trying to sort of muddy the waters by talking about the Tomahawks.
Yeah, they were saying that they didn't believe it was theirs, or they believe that Iran misfired something. Are we sure that it was a Tomahawk that hit that school?
There's no evidence that the Iranians fired anything at the school. If you look at the satellite imageries, and there have been a lot of investigations from the air, from these satellite photos, showing the impact and showing the likelihood that it was a Tomahawk.
Last thing, what struck you from that news conference?
I think what struck me is, are the Israelis and the U.S. on the same page about feeling that they're almost close to the end of this operation? My sense is that they are on different time frames. The Israelis all along have been focusing more on regime change, and they're very far from that point at this point, because you still have, while 2 and 3 layers of leaders have been removed, there is still a pretty strong layer that's still there with Ali Larijani in charge. He is a brutal leader, as well as this new supreme leader, even if he's injured. So I think that's one thing. Also, we really don't have an answer for the nuclear program. So far, the military strikes, the U.S. strikes and the Israeli strikes really haven't touched the nuclear site that he was referring to that was being rebuilt. And we know that from the IAEA head Grossi today that about 220 kilograms or 400 pounds of highly enriched uranium is likely still at Isfahan. We have not heard any plan for how they're planning to go get that, or work with the regime, who I doubt they could work with at this point, to go in and dilute that highly enriched uranium.
Yeah, complex questions and issues. Jen, thanks. Up next, more with the panel, learning more about the situation in the Middle East. We'll head down on the ground with a reporter there. Keep it here on Fox. Well, it was a manic Monday on Wall Street, as you can imagine. Stocks lost big early, then they rebounded amid an up and down day for oil prices and the thought about where this is headed. The Dow gaining 239, the S&P 500 finished ahead 56, the Nasdaq jumped 308 today. Sirens blared multiple times in Israel amid unrelenting Iranian drones and missiles. Tonight we have that story, plus additional information on the new Iranian leader. You heard the president talking about him. Correspondent Nate Foy is in Tel Aviv with the latest. Good evening, Nate.
Hey, Brett, good evening. The United States and Israel continue making progress on the battlefield. You heard the president say that the U.S. has struck 5,000 targets so far in Operation Epic Fury. But the appointment of Mujtaba Khamenei as Iran's next supreme leader may indicate that this conflict is far from finished. Take a look at the streets of Tehran today. As you can see, thousands came out to support the regime. One person there said they will resist the United States until their last drop of blood. Mujtaba reportedly may have been injured in the U.S.-Israeli strikes, but not too significantly, although Iran hasn't directly confirmed that. He is the first hereditary successor in Iran's Islamic Republic. He's a hardline Shia cleric with deep connections in the IRGC. He's expected to pursue similar policies to his father, and President Trump earlier called him an unacceptable choice. Mujtaba's appointment came hours after Israeli strikes on Iranian oil infrastructure in Tehran. Meanwhile, Iran continues launching cluster bombs at Israel, killing an 11th Israeli citizen today. Iran also wants to internationalize the cost of this war. They attacked a Bahrain oil refinery earlier. As President Trump said tonight, he's considering taking control of the Strait of Hormuz to facilitate oil shipments. This as the U.S. continues its bombing campaign. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said today that American forces are well on their way to destroying Iran's ballistic missile capabilities. And you just heard President Trump say those capabilities are down to 10%. But it does continue. Tel Aviv has come under fire several times today, and the sirens are blaring in the country's north as well as Israel continues fighting Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. Brett.
Despite the optimism, there's a lot of risk to a lot of people in the region. Nate Foy in Tel Aviv. Nate, thanks. Also breaking tonight, back here in the U.S., terrorism charges against two Pennsylvania men accused of throwing an explosive device outside the New York City mayor's official residence Saturday afternoon. The men allegedly were motivated by the Islamic State. Correspondent C.B. Cotton outside Gracie Mansion in New York tonight.
Federal prosecutors say two Pennsylvania men, Ibrahim Qayyumi and Emir Balat, were inspired by ISIS when they traveled to New York City carrying homemade explosives to a counter-protest in response to a far-right influencer who gathered others under the banner, quote, "Stop the Islamic Takeover of New York City." The initial protest held outside Gracie Mansion, home to New York City's first Muslim mayor. And video captured the moment one of the IEDs was thrown towards the anti-Muslim protesters. The bomb didn't detonate, but a criminal complaint revealing this photo of what the FBI says was found inside one of two devices: bolts, screws, and a powerful substance with a sinister name.
One of the devices contained triacetone triperoxide, or TATP, also commonly referred to as Mother of Satan, a highly volatile explosive that has been used in multiple terrorist attacks over the last decade.
Both Qayyumi and Balat made their first appearances in federal court on Monday, each facing 5 charges for attempting to support ISIS and use a weapon of mass destruction. According to the criminal complaint, one of the men admitted to watching ISIS videos. The other asked if he was familiar with the Boston Marathon bombing and whether that's what he hoped to accomplish. Investigators say he responded, quote, "No, even bigger, it was only 3 deaths." NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch says that same suspect also said this of Islam.
This isn't a religion that just stands when people talk about the blessed name of the prophet. We take action.
Today, New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani condemning the initial protest and the violence that came after.
Anyone who comes to New York City to bring violence to our streets will be held accountable in accordance with the law.
An attorney for one of the suspects suggested today that his client didn't know the other accused man very well. Federal sources tell me they're looking into the suspect's recent overseas travel, including trips to Turkey. Authorities also say right now there are no ties between this case and what's happening in Iran. Brett.
C.B. Cotton. in New York City. CB, thanks. Up next, we check in with Chad Pergram up on Capitol Hill, tracking the DHS funding fight, plus a unique event to celebrate the country's 250th. Keep it here.
We want voter ID. We want to be able to see a picture of the voter. We want to be able to see that the voter is legitimate. We want, very importantly, confirmation that this voter is a citizen of the United States of America, and we want no mail-in ballot scams.
President Trump, a short time ago, the Save America Act, he wants it passed, says he doesn't want to sign anything else before that. Let's bring in Chief Congressional Correspondent Chad Pergram. Good evening, Chad. That would be something.
Yeah, it would be, and this would sidetrack virtually everything else in the Senate. Keep in mind that you can pass something in the Senate, in the House of Representatives, and send it to the president, and it can become law even if he doesn't sign it within 10 days, Sundays excluded. So maybe they could get the DHS funding deal done that way, but there's no impetus to get there right now. He is putting all of his eggs in one basket on trying to pass the Save America Act. And they have to get this through the Senate. They would have to clear a filibuster. That takes 60 votes, but there's a coalition of some Senate conservatives who say, let's make Democrats get up and filibuster the old-fashioned way, Jimmy Stewart way, talk on the floor. Now, John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, says the talking filibuster is, quote, way more complicated than people believe, and an extended debate would block the Senate from funding DHS or confirming Mark Wayne Mullen as the Secretary of Homeland Security.
Hey, Chad, I only have 20 seconds, but DHS, he ripped on Democrats, saying it's causing a lot of problems, and even on the terror, watching cells, possibly.
Yeah, that's the concern right now. If there were to be a terrorist attack with DHS shut down, they pin that on the Democrats.
Yeah, and the TSA lines. Chad Pergram on Capitol Hill. Chad, thanks.
Thank you.
Finally tonight, a special day. This summer, the White House will bring a Grand Prix race to Pennsylvania Avenue as part of America's 250th birthday celebration. Drivers will hit speeds of nearly 190 miles per hour at a 1.7-mile course with 7 turns near the National Mall. President Trump expected to wave the green flag. It's pretty awesome. They unveiled it today. Free tickets available online in early April. Indy cars on the National Mall. Nothing like it. Tomorrow on Special Report, how the U.S. is using newer and cheaper weapons to fight Iran. Remember, if you can't catch us
really scary cat. Yeah.
His hand symbol as he was led out of the precinct. Ibrahim Qayyumi's parents are from Afghanistan. Became